Billy Budd, Chapter 21, Part 2, Section 2 of Chapter 21, Segment 2 of Chapter 21. But while put to it by those anxieties in you which I cannot but respect, I only repeat myself, while thus strangely we prolong proceedings that should be summary, the enemy may be sighted, and an engagement result. We must do, and one of two things must we do: condemn or let go. Can we not convict and yet mitigate the penalty? Asked the sailor-master, here speaking, and falteringly, for the first. Gentlemen, were that clearly lawful for us under the circumstances, consider the consequences of such clemency. The people, meaning the ship's company, have native sense. Most of them are familiar with our naval usage and tradition, and how would they take it? Even could you explain to them, which our official position forbids, they, long molded by arbitrary discipline, have not that kind of intelligent responsiveness that might qualify them to comprehend and discriminate. No, to the people, the foretopman's deed, however it be worded in the announcement, will be plain homicide committed in a flagrant act of mutiny. What penalty for that should follow, they know. What penalty for that should follow, they know. But it does not follow. Why? They will ruminate. You know what sailors are. Will they not revert to the recent outbreak at the Norway? Aye, they know the well-founded alarm, the panic it struck throughout England. Your clement sentence they would account pusillanimous. Your clement sentence they would account pusillanimous. They would think that we flinch, that we are afraid of them, afraid of practicing a lawful rigor, singularly demanded at this juncture, lest it should provoke new troubles. What shame to us such a conjecture on their part, and how deadly to discipline. How see then? You see then, whither, prompted by duty and the law, I steadfastly drive. But I beseech you, my friends, do not take me amiss. I feel as you do for this unfortunate boy. But did he know our hearts, I take him to be of that generous nature, that he would feel even for us, on whom, in this military necessity, so heavy a compulsion is laid. With that, crossing the deck, he resumed his place by the sashed porthole, tacitly leaving the three to come to a decision. On the cabin's opposite side, the troubled court sat silent. Loyal lieges, plain and practical, though at bottom they dissented from some points Captain Very had put to them. They were without the faculty, hardly had the inclination to gainsay one whom they felt to be an earnest man, one to not less their superior in mind than in naval rank. But it is not improbable that even such of his words as were not without influence over them, less came home to them than his closing appeal to their instinct as sea officers. In the forethought he threw out as to the practical consequences to discipline, considering the unconfirmed tone of the fleet at the time, should a man-of-war's man, violent, killing at sea, of a superior in grade be allowed to pass for aught else than a capital crime demanding prompt infliction of the penalty. Not unlikely, they were brought to something more or less akin to that harassed frame of mind which in the year 1842 actuated the commander of the U.S. brig of war Somers to resolve, under the so-called Articles of War, articles moulded upon the English Mutiny Act, to resolve upon the execution at sea of a midshipman and 2 sailors as mutineers, designing the seizure of the brig, which resolution was carried out, though in a time of peace, and within not many days' sail of home, an act vindicated by a naval court of inquiry, subsequently convened ashore. History, and here cited without comment. True, the circumstances on board the Somers were different from those on board the Bellefonte. True, the circumstances on board the Somers were different from those on board the Bellefonte. But the urgency felt, well warranted or otherwise, was much the same. Says a writer, whom few know, 40 years after a battle, it is easy for a non-combatant to reason about how it ought to have been fought. It is another thing personally, and under fire, to have to direct the fighting while involved in the obscuring smoke of it. Much so with respect to other emergencies involving considerations both practical and moral, and when it is imperative promptly to act. The greater the fog, the more it imperils the steamer, and speed is put on, though at the hazard of running somebody down. Little ween the snug card players in the cabin of the responsibilities of the sleepless man on the bridge. In brief, Billy Budd was formally convicted and sentenced to be hung at the yardarm in the early morning watch, it being now night. Otherwise, as is customary in such cases, the sentence would forthwith have been carried out. In wartime, on the field or in the fleet, a mortal punishment decreed by a drumhead court, on the field sometimes decreed by but a nod from the general, follows without delay on the heel of conviction without appeal.